Hi everyone, my name is Prerak Sharma and I am a first year student of MBA Data Science and AI at IIT Mandi. I make these videos in which I communicate for at least 20 minutes. I have decided to do it for 2 years straight so that I can improve my lingo, and if my communication lingo is improved, I will definitely get a competitive edge over others, because in the end what we speak from our mouth portrays in the other person's head as the personality of the others. We all judge each other, and when we judge, we first of all start by seeing the person, and the second thing we judge a person by is how they speak or what they speak about. So I'm trying to improve that aspect, and for that I also have decided to read Bhagavad Gita. And by reading Bhagavad Gita, the purpose behind reading it is first of all knowing myself properly. If I know myself, I will be able to know others, and when I know others, I will be able to manage them better. The first step is knowing myself better. So Bhagavad Gita is for knowing myself. One more thing is, the person who taught me Bhagavad Gita, I want that person to come on my YouTube channel so that other people can benefit through his presence. Mostly the parents which we have, nobody teaches them anything. Our cousins or the mother's side, the elderly people, they don't have any guidance and they don't even have any motivation to read all this stuff. So I would like that guest to come and help the people like us. And the challenge which sir has given me, or the task which sir has given me, is to complete 3 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. If I can complete 3 chapters of Bhagavad Gita and I have any questions, he will consider coming on it. Everything is uncertain. What we can do is our karma, and that is what I am doing. We were so we were in the text 18, I believe. Similarly, the fragment parts of the Supreme Lord are atomic particles. I'll keep my bottle with me because while speaking for 1 hour or 20 minutes straight, I will feel thirsty. So text 18. Antavant ime deha nityasokyotta sharirinaha anashino premyasya tasmadyudhyasva bharat. Only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. Therefore fight, O descendant of Bharat. The material body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately or it may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely, but the spirit soul is so minute that it can not even be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of being killed. As mentioned in the previous words, it is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimension. So from both viewpoints, there is no cause of lamentation, because the living entity can neither be killed as he is, nor can the material body, which cannot be saved for any length of time, be permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires this material body according to his work, and therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized. In the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because he is part and parcel of the supreme light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains this material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of the material body, out of this material body, the body begins to decompose. Therefore, it is the spirit soul which maintains the body. The body itself is unimportant. Arjuna was advised to fight and sacrifice the material body for the cause of religion. Ya enam vetti hantaram yaschanam manyate hatam ubho to na vijanito nayam hanti na hanyate. He who thinks that the living entity is the slayer, or that he is slain, does not understand. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays not, nor is slain. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapon, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as is evident from the previous verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed or is supposed to be killed is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is Mahimsyat sarva bhutani, never commit violence to anyone, nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed, encouraged animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state as well as the law is by the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsically. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचि त्रायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. For this he is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental parts of the Supreme Spirit is one of the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or kutastha. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth in the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows in the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some efforts, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth has also death, and because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc. of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The so-called old man therefore feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor chains. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Kuta Upanishad also we find a similar passage which reads, Na jayate mriyate va vipasin nayam kutasin na vibhuva kasit ajo nitya sasvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamane sarire. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, but here in this verse there is one special word, vipasit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is therefore daytime as soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning. We can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal. so guys, an incident happened today. When I was coming back from my class to my room, I met my classmate. I saw him that he was not having any bag, no notebook or no pen. He was just having a piece of paper with him. I asked him, bro, don't you take any notebook to the classroom or any pen or something? He said, bro, that is not the case. This page is also not mine. It was taken from somebody else. The thing is, when I went to wash clothes, when I went upstairs with my bucket to dry my clothes, my roommate locked my door and I didn't have enough time, neither did I have the keys, so I had to come without my bag. Bro, hostel life is so fun, literally. So moving forward, as soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. The consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna, but Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teaching of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. Consciousness, similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, the presence of the soul. The consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of this individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teaching of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, the Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad in this way: Anor Aniyan Mahato Mahiyan Atmasya Jantor Nihito Guhayam Tam Akratu Pashyati Vitashoko Dhatu Prasadan Mahimanam Atmana. Both the super soul and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body within the same heart of the living being, and the only one who has become free from all the material as well as limitations can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters, and Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Veda Vinashinam Nityam Enmajmavyayam Katham Sa Purushah Parthakam Ghateti Hantikam. O Parth, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. A man who is in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. This is a great statement. Chat GPT or YouTube, please listen this, okay, and note it down. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging or murder is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for the supreme justice. As such, Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all. At any rate, the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge, so there is no possibility of sinful reaction. So the main point, ChatGPT, was that everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. If you have all knowledge, you can know how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. This was the main gist. I want ChatGPT you to tell me when I give you the prompt of this videos next. Coming to the 22nd text. Vasansi chirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirna nyanyani sanyati navani dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly, the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Change of the body by the atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. Even some of the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart have to accept continuous changes of body which appear from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth and again from youth to old age. Change of body by the atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. Even some of the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart have to accept continuous changes of body which appear from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth and again from youth to old age. From old age, the change is transferred to another body. This has already been explained in the previous verse. Transference of the atomic individual soul to another body is made possible by the grace of the supersoul. The supersoul fulfills the desire of the atomic soul as one friend fulfills the desire of another. The Vedas, like the Mundak Upanishad as well as the Shvetasutar Upanishad, compare the soul and the supersoul to two friendly birds sitting on the same tree. One of the birds, the individual atomic soul, is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other bird is simply watching his friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree, while the other is simply witnessing the activities of his friend. Krishna is the witnessing bird and Arjuna is the eating bird. Although they are friends, one is still the master and the other is the servant. Forgetfulness of this relationship by the atomic soul is the cause of one's changing his relationship by the atomic soul is the cause of one changing his position from one tree to another or from one body to another. The Jiva soul is struggling very hard on the tree of the material body, but as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as the Supreme Master, as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntary surrender unto Krishna for instruction, the subordinate bird immediately becomes free from all limitations. Both the Katha Upanishad and Shvetaswatra Upanishad confirms this. Samane vrakase purusa निमग्नो निसाय सोसाति मुह्यमना जस्तं यदा पश्यति अन्यम isam asya mahimanam iti vitasoka. Although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and motionless as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or the other he turns his face to his friend, who is the Lord and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. Arjuna has now turned his face towards his eternal friend Krishna and is understanding the Bhagavad Gita from him, and thus hearing from Krishna he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and be free from lamentation. Arjuna is advised herewith by the Lord not to lament for the bodily change of his old grandfather and his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight so that they may be cleansed at once of all reactions from bodily activities. One who lays down his life on the sacrificial altar or in the proper battlefield is at once cleansed of bodily reactions and promoted to higher stages of life. So there was no cause for Arjuna's lamentation. Chat GPT, one more question for you, which I have to ask the sir. The example of the bird who is eating the fruit and behind him is the watcher, the another bird who is Krishna or the supreme consciousness, who is just watching the other bird eating. So my question is, how does this example signify us? And just if the bird who's eating stops eating and looks back towards the other bird, how can its problems be solved? Please explain, because this example doesn't make any logical sense to me. And also this was mentioned in both Katha Upanishad and Shvetaswatra Upanishad. So please, it might be my incompetence or my lack of knowledge that I am not able to articulate this, and this question came to my mind. Please enlighten me with this. Thank you so much. Now moving on to the text 23. Nainam chindanti shastrani nainam dahati pavakah na chainam krite dayantyapo na shoshyati marutah. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor can he be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. All kinds of weapons, swords, flames, rains, tornadoes, etc. are unable to kill the spirit soul. It appears that there were many kinds of weapons made of earth, water, air, ether, etc. in addition to the modern weapons of fire. All kinds of weapons, swords, flames, rains, tornadoes, etc. are unable to kill the spirit soul. It appears that there were many kinds of weapons made of earth, water, air, ether, etc. in addition to the modern weapons of fire. Even the nuclear weapons of the modern age are classified as fire weapons, but formerly there were other weapons made of all different types of material elements. Firearms were counteracted by water weapons, which are now unknown to the modern science, nor do modern scientists have knowledge of tornado weapons. Nonetheless, the soul can never be cut into pieces nor annihilated by any number of weapons, regardless of scientific devices, nor was it ever possible to cut the individual soul from the original souls. The Mayavadi, however, cannot describe how the individual soul evolved from ignorance and consequently became covered by illusory energy. Because they are atomic individual, the Mayavadi, however, cannot describe how the individual soul evolved from ignorance and consequently became covered by illusory energy. Because they are atomic individual souls, eternally they are prone to be covered by the illusory energy, and thus they become separated from the association of the Supreme Lord, just as sparks of the fire, although one in quality with the fire, are prone to be extinguished when out of the fire. In the Vara Purana, the living entities are described as separated part and parcels of the Supreme. They are eternally so according to the Bhagavad Gita also. So even after being liberated from illusion, the living entity remains a separate identity, as is evident from the teachings of the Lord to Arjuna. Arjuna became liberated by the knowledge received from Krishna, but he never became one with Krishna. They are eternally so according to Bhagavad Gita also. So even after being liberated from illusion, the living entity remains a separate identity, as is evident from the teachings of the Lord to Krishna, Lord to Arjuna. Arjuna became liberated by the knowledge received from Krishna, but he never became one with Krishna. So even after knowing, being liberated by the knowledge, you don't become one with the Supreme Consciousness. You are aware of your being, and the Supreme Being is also a different one. Similarly, the way in which Arjuna and Krishna's thing happened, Arjuna was liberated by the knowledge given by Krishna, but even after the end of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna accepted that whatever you say, I'll do it, and both of them remained separate. Till the end of Arjuna's life, he was separate, and he had his individuality with him. Same with Krishna. They didn't become one, they lived as separate entities. Never became one with Krishna. Achedyo yam dahyo yam kledyo choshya evacha nityah sarvagatah sthanur chaloyam sanatanah. The individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, all-pervading, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. All these qualifications of the atomic soul definitely prove that the individual soul is eternally the atomic particle of the spirit whole, and he remains the same atom eternally without change. The theory of monism is very difficult to apply in this case, because the individual soul is never expected to become one homogeneously. After liberation from material contamination, the atomic soul may prefer to remain as a spiritual spark in the effulgent rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the intelligent souls enter into the spiritual planets to associate with the Personality of Godhead. The word Sarvagata, all-pervading, is significant because there is no doubt that living entities are all over God's creation. They live on the land, in the water, in the air, within the earth, and even within fire. The belief that they are sterilized in fire is not acceptable, because it is clearly stated here that the soul cannot be burned by fire. Therefore, there is no doubt that there are living entities also in the sun planet with suitable bodies to live there. If the sun globe is uninhabited, then the word Sarvagata, living everywhere, becomes meaningless. Living entities are everywhere, all five elements: water, fire, air, fire, ether. It's just that we are not able to see them, but they are all there. We have discovered water, living entities in the water. We have discovered living entities which are microorganisms in the soil, earth. We have discovered living entities in air. What two we have left are fire and ether. In ether we are still to find the living entities, and in fire we can't observe right now, but a suitable living entity with a particular body suitable to the environment or the type of in nature that he is in, there might be living entities there. It's just that with the technology or the information that we have, we are not able to comprehend right now. Moving on to the text 25. Avyakto yamachintyo yamavikaryo yamuchyate tasmadevam viditvanam nanushochit tumarhasi. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. As described previously, the magnitude of the soul is so small for our material calculation that he cannot be seen even by the most powerful microscope. Therefore, he is invisible. As far as the soul's existence is concerned, no one can establish its existence experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti or Vedic wisdom. We have to accept this truth because there is no other source of understanding the existence of the soul, although it is a fact by perception. There are many things we have to accept solely on grounds of superior authority. No one can deny the existence of his father based upon the authority of his mother. There is no other source of understanding the identity of the father except by the authority of the mother. Similarly, there is no other source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas. In other words, the soul is conceivable by human experimental knowledge. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That also is the statement of the Vedas. And we have to accept that, unlike the bodily changes, there is no change in the soul. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That also is the statement of the Vedas. We have to accept that. As eternally unchangeable, the soul remains atomic in comparison to the infinite supreme soul. The supreme soul is infinite and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas in different ways just to confirm the stability of the conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error. The Supreme Soul is infinite and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas of different ways just to confirm the stability of the conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error. Repetition is necessary to understand thoroughly. Chat GPT, please note this point also. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error. Ath chainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochi tumarhasi. If, however, you think the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. There is always a class of philosophers almost akin to the Buddhists who do not believe in the separate existence of the soul beyond the body. When Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, it appears that such philosophers existed and they were known as the Lokayatikas and Vaibhasikas. These philosophers maintain that life symptoms or soul takes place as a certain mature condition of material combination. The modern material scientists and materialist philosophers also think similarly. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage of the life symptoms develop by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. The science of anthropology is based on this philosophy. Currently, many pseudo-religions now becoming fashionable in America are also adhering to this philosophy as well as to the nihilistic, non-devotional Buddhist sects. Even if Arjuna did not believe in the existence of the soul, as in the Vaibhasika philosophy, there would still have been no cause for lamentation. No one laments the loss of certain bulks of chemicals and stops discharging his prescribed duty. On the other hand, in modern science and scientific warfare, so many tons of chemicals are wasted for achieving victory over the enemy. According to the Vaibhasika philosophy, the so-called soul or Atma vanishes along with the deterioration of the body. So, in any case, whether Arjuna accepted the Vedic conclusion that there is an atomic soul or whether he did not believe in the existence of the soul, he had no reason to lament. According to this theory, since there are so many living entities generating out of matter every moment and so many of them being vanquished every moment, there is no need to grieve for such an incident. However, since he was not risking rebirth of the soul, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected with the sinful reactions due to his killing his grandfather and the teacher. But at the same time, Krishna sarcastically addressed Arjuna as Mahabahu, mighty armed, because he at least did not accept the theory of the Vaibhasikas, which leaves aside the Vedic wisdom. Since he was not risking rebirth of his soul, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected with sinful reaction due to his killing his grandfather. But at the same time, Krishna sarcastically addressed Arjuna as Mahabahu, mighty arm, because he at least did not accept the theory of the Vaibhasika, which leaves aside the Vedic wisdom. As a Kshatriya, Arjuna belonged to the Vedic culture and it behoved him to continue to follow its principle. Sir, ChatGPT, please note it. I had a question. The question goes like this. The question is, all the living entities that are present, they they had some desire, so Krishna said that go fulfill your desire, I will be there with you every moment, but your nature is like this, that you'll forget my existence, and the day you remember me, I'll take you back. Will there a day come? Because according to the yugas which we have, we move in the circle of the yugas. Will there ever be a day when all the realized souls, when all the souls will realize their true nature, and all of them will come back to Krishna? And if that is true, the last soul which will be present in the material world, being alone, when it can't fulfill even the bodily connections, when even the bodily things will not be fulfilled, how will that survive? Because at the end, the basic survival need, the mating principle that we have, requires another living entities, and when only one living entity will be present, how will it procreate? Please help me with this question. ChatGPT, please note this question. Thank you so much. Now moving on to text 27. Jatasya hi dhruvo मृत्यु ध्रुवम मृत्युर्ध्रुवम जन्ममृतस्य च तस्माद् परिहार्ये हार्यर्थे ना त्वं शोचि तुमर्हसि. For one who has taken his birth, death is certain, and for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. One who has to take birth according to one's activities of life, and after finishing one term of activities, one has to die to take birth for the next. In this way, the cycle of birth and death is revolving one after the other without liberation. This cycle of birth and death does not, however, support unnecessary murder, slaughter, and war, but at the same time, violence and war are inevitable factors in human society for keeping law and order. The battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable event, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of Kshatriya. Why should he be afraid of or aggrieved at the death of his relative, since he was discharging his proper duty? He did not deserve to break the law, thereby becoming subjected to the reactions of the sinful act. The battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable event, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of a Kshatriya. Why should he be afraid or aggrieved at the death of his relative, since he was discharging his proper duty? He did not deserve to break the law, thereby becoming subjected to the reactions of sinful acts of which he was so afraid. By avoiding the discharge of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action. By avoiding the discharge of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action. Avyaktadini dini bhutani vyakt madhyani bharat अव्यक्त निधानान्येव तत्र का paridevana. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation, accepting that there are two classes of philosophers, one believing in the existence of soul and other not believing in the existence of the soul. There is no cause for lamentation in either case. Non-believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet, even if, for argument's sake, we accept the atheistic theory, there is still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before creation. From this subtle state of unmanifestation comes manifestation. Just as from ether air is generated, from air fire is generated, from fire water is generated, and from water earth becomes manifested. From the earth many varieties of manifestation takes place. Take for example a big skyscraper manifested from earth. When it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in course of time things are unmanifested and manifested. That is the difference. Then what cause is there for lamentation, either in the stage of manifestation or unmanifestation? Somehow or other, even in the unmanifested stage, things are not lost. Both at the beginning and at the end, all elements remain unmanifested, and only in the middle are they manifested, and this does not make any real material difference. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, that those material bodies are perishable in due course of time, but the soul is eternal, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, but that soul is eternal, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, that those material bodies are perishable in due course of time, but that soul is eternal, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king, but then we wake up. We can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated on the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on basis of the non-existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, when one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation of the loss of body. Ashcharya vat pashyati kashiden masharya vadvadati tathav chanyah ashcharya chanamanyah rinoti shrutva pienam vedana chaiva kaschit. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Since Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to also find this passage in the Katha Upanishad, Shravana yapi bahubhir yo na labhyah shrananavanto pi bhavo yana vidyu ascharyo vakta kushalo sya labdha ascharyo jnanat kushal nu sista. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbic germs, millions of billions and billions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. Men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful either by constitution or by description, illusion by the material energy. People are so engrossed in the subject matter for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the questions of self-understanding, even though it is a fact that without this self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbic germs, millions and billions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. Men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful either by constitution or by description, illusion by the material energy. People are so engrossed in subject matter for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self-understanding, even though it is a fact that without this self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. Perhaps one has no idea that one must think of the soul and also make a solution of the material miseries. Coming back to the first question which I asked in this video, sir, I was talking about soul, the living entities which we have present. And here it is written that even in an inch of space, there are billion living entities living here. So technically, the living entities, the soul which was separated from the Supreme, the number is huge. so many living entities, so many souls, or so many individual conscious units had the desire to enjoy themselves, and accordingly this body was given to us. And what is written about microorganisms in the Vedas? Because considering us, we can enjoy this world, we are bound to have the reaction of our karmas. No other living entity is bound by this. They just perform their duties, complete their lives, and so on. What duties does the microorganism has? What is the life of a microorganism according to Vedas? Sir ChatGPT and Sir, please help me with it. Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes owing to ignorance they are misguided by the acceptance of the super soul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. It is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the soul, the super soul, the atomic soul, their respective functions, relationships, and all other major and minor details, and it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But if somehow or other one is successful, the easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad Gita, spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in the previous one, before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee in no other way. Only when the devotee is extremely passionate and extremely wants to know the Lord, then the Krishna appears. It's so simple for him. Just show him pure devotion and he'll appear. It's just us who are creating the confusion. We like to attend lectures and know that we are the soul, but we can't accept that Krishna is the eternal soul, is the supreme being. And the day we accept it, we will also reach that stage. Dehi nityam avadhyoham dhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharat tasmat sarvani bhutani na tvam shochitu marhasi. O descendant of Bharat, he who dwells in this body, in the body, is eternal and can never be slain. Therefore you need not grieve for any creature. The Lord now concludes the chapter of instruction on the immutable spirit soul in the describing the immortal soul in various ways. Lord Krishna establishes that the soul is immortal and the body is temporary. Therefore, Arjuna as a Kshatriya should not abandon his duty out of fear that his grandfather and teacher Bhishma and Drona will die in the battle. On the authority of Sri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from the material body. Who establishes the dharma? Krishna. Authority, who are we? We just have to follow the dharma established by Krishna. On the authority of Sri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from the material body, not that there is no such thing as soul, or that living symptoms develop at a certain stage of material maturity resulting from the interaction of chemicals. Through the soul, though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the time of war it is not discouraged. When there is actual need for it, that need must be justified in terms of the sanction of the Lord and not capriciously, when we have no right to harm the other living entity. But when a war comes, that becomes an act of courage and we have to do it. Just one thing to remember, that do it in terms, if it is justified in the terms of the sanction of the Lord and not capriciously. So dharmamapi chavikshya na vikampi tu marhasi dharmayadhi yuddha chachreyo nyatkshatriyasya na vidyate. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. One out of the 4 orders of social administration, the second order for the matter of good administration is called Kshatriya. Kshat means hurt. One who gives protection from harm is called Kshatriya. Trayate, to give protection. The Kshatriyas are trained for killing in the forest. A Kshatriya would go into the forest and challenge a tiger face to face and fight with the tiger with his sword. When the tiger was killed, it would be offered the royal order of cremation. This system is being followed even up to the present day by the Kshatriya kings of Jaipur state. The Kshatriyas are specially trained for challenging and killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. Therefore, Kshatriyas are never meant for accepting directly the order of sannyas or renunciation. Non-violence in politics may be a diplomacy, but it is never a factor of principle. In the religious law books, it is stated that ahvesu mitho neon nyam jigha jigha misanto mahiksita yuddhamanah param sakya swargam yanti aparanamukha यजनेषु पसावो ब्राह्मण हन्यते सतातम द्विजय संस्कृता कीला मंत्रे सते स्वर्गम avapnuvan. In the battlefield, a king or kshatriya, while fighting another king envious of him, is eligible for achieving heavenly planets after death, as the Brahmanas also attain the heavenly planets by sacrificing animals in the sacrificial fire. Therefore, killing on the battle on the religious principle and the killing of animals in the sacrificial fire are not at all considered to be acts of violence, because everyone is benefited by the religious principles involved. The animal sacrifice gets a human life immediately. The animal sacrificed gets a human life immediately without undergoing the gradual evolutionary process from one form to another, and the Kshatriyas killed in the battlefield also attain the heavenly planets, as do the Brahmanas who attain them by offering sacrifice. The animal sacrifice gets a human life immediately. The Kshatriyas killed in the battlefield also attain the heavenly planets, as do the Brahmanas who attain them by offering sacrifice. There are two kinds of Swadharma, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of that particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. There are two kinds of Swadharma, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of that particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. There are two kinds of Swadharma, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform. There are two kinds of Swadharma. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of that particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one Swadharma, specific duty, becomes spiritual and is not in the material bodily concept. In the bodily conception of life, there are specific duties for the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas respectively, and such duties are unavoidable. Swadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane, Swadharma is called Varnashram Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnashrama Dharma, or specific duties in terms of the specific modes of nature of the body obtained. Discharging one specific duty in any field of action in accordance with Varnashrama Dharma serves to elevate one to a higher status of life. So I would like to end today's session in the text 31st, and from tomorrow we'll again continue with the 32nd text, 114 page. We have 72 texts, more than 40 left, and on the other hand we have how many texts in the we have 43 texts in the chapter 3 also. So it will be fun and a great activity to do all of this, to read all of it and have questions in the end of the day. Let's say how many days it takes. Today is Tuesday. Let's see till next Tuesday if it can be completed. My schedule is also getting a little hectic, so let's see where it goes. It was a fun activity to do. Talking about communication skills, I have more confidence than before. I am able to speak more confidently. I'm able to present it nicely, but the continuation part, when I have to talk continuously, I have to figure out things in a more thoughtful way and in a better way. I have to present myself. I don't have that fluency, the continuancy that I can talk in English for hours. I don't have that vocabulary right now, and the only way to establish or make that come into my life, that kind of vocabulary, I have to be in touch with those people who don't know Hindi at all. I have to be in touch with them and communicate on a daily basis so that I'm able to articulate my thoughts. The monologue that is going on in my head goes only in English, then only I'll be able to come to this. So this was it for today. We read chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. Now I'll study some accounts, Python or something else, stats, math. I have so many things to study. Let's see where it goes. Till then, bye guys. We'll meet tomorrow for sure, and we'll come up with another initiative, another chapter, because we start new things. This is Shuruat, the art of starting again, feeling and then starting again. It's an art. That is Shuruat. So this was it for today. I hope Janmashtami was great for you. If you want to watch the video of Janmashtami at IIT Mandi, you can go to my Instagram. The link to my Instagram is attached in the description below. The links to my LinkedIn is also below, and my Twitter is also below. So consider following that. Till then guys, I'll be taking a leave. We'll meet tomorrow and again continue this silsila, or I don't know what the English word for silsila is, and continue this silsila of reading and developing our communication skills and also completing the Bhagavad Gita, so that my dear sir can come on this channel. So bye guys, we'll meet tomorrow. Till then, signing off, Prerak Sharma, MBA, Data Science and AI.